Vladimir Putin just made a big mistake. He bombed an American factory inside Ukraine. In today's English lesson, we are going to watch a newscast about that very thing. And of course, just as they always do, the news is going to use some rather advanced vocabulary. Terms that you might see on the IELTS or TOEFL exam, or terms you might hear a native English speaker say if you ever have a conversation with them. But don't worry, that's where I come in. I am going to teach you all of the difficult terms you are about to hear. Before we get started, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button and let's watch that newscast together.
So a major Russian attack on Ukraine hitting an American-owned factory. It's causing concern over the U.S.-led peace talks between the nations. It comes as new reports outline Vladimir Putin's demands for trilateral, including his push to control the Donbas region in eastern Ukraine in exchange for freezing the current front lines, and there's more. Fox News senior strategic analyst, retired four-star General Jack Keane. And, General, perhaps the biggest thing is they don't want any international troops for security guarantees. That's a huge discrepancy from what he told Witkoff last week and what we thought came out of Alaska.
In English, we have two ways we use outline. Sometimes we use it as a noun, sometimes we use it as a verb. Let's talk about both of them here. For each term, I'm going to have the official definition, and I will also use it in at least one sentence, sometimes two. So outline as a noun, it means the main plan or a list of ideas. The news gave an outline of what happened in the attack. But in the newscast, they used it as a verb, like this, to explain the main points. The reporter outlined how Russia hit the U.S. factory. And in that picture, you have someone explaining something, or you could say they are outlining the lesson, or they are outlining the main points. The Donbas region, or at least that's how we say it in English, that is an area in eastern Ukraine where there is fighting. Russia definitely wants this territory. The Donbas region has been in the news because of the war. And if we make that map a little bigger, you might see some stories that have been in the news for over a decade. Vladimir Putin first invaded the Donbas region in 2014. In the newscast, they are talking to a 4-star general. That is the second highest ranking anyone can have in the military. The highest ranking is a 5-star general. But let's talk about a 4-star general. This is a very high U.S. military leader. A 4-star general spoke about the attack on the factory.
Fox News senior strategic analyst, retired four-star General Jack Keane. And, General, perhaps the biggest thing is they don't want any international troops for security guarantees. That's a huge discrepancy from what he told Witkoff last week and what we thought came out of Alaska.
They talked about a discrepancy in the newscast. Discrepancy. A discrepancy is a difference that does not match. There was a discrepancy between Russia's story and the facts. And if you take a look at that picture, it looks like somebody might be doing their taxes or they are running some kind of numbers and it looks like they have a discrepancy. This is never a good thing when you're doing your taxes. They talked about a guy named Steve Witkoff in the newscast. So let's talk about him right now. He is an American businessman. Steve Witkoff owns companies, just like the U.S. company that had a factory in Ukraine. But he was not the owner of that factory. He has another title that Donald Trump sometimes calls him. Trump also named him the Special Envoy for Peace Missions. An envoy is sometimes called a go-between. It's someone who is like in between two leaders who are fighting. He tries to come up with an agreement. Please let me interrupt this English lesson for just a second. If you are looking for a speaking partner, I can be your speaking partner. If you check out the description below, there is a link that will take you to learn more information. It does cost some money, but I have been teaching for 20 years. I will not steer you wrong. Yes, it does cost money, but right now I am offering a coupon for 10% off. Use the code SUMMER10 at checkout to get your 10% off. Multinational. Multinational. This just means from many countries. The factory was part of a multinational company with offices worldwide. That is just an example sentence. The 4-star general says the response to Russia needs to be multinational, meaning like not just the United States has to respond. The Europeans, or sometimes he calls them the Euros, they have to be involved as well.
Well, I think he made a general statement. I don't know what the language was used with Steve Witkoff, but I think he made a general statement to the president when he was with him, you know, dealing with security guarantees being reasonable, something we should discuss. But I think anybody knowing Putin, when you get into the details of this, that's something else again. So listen, it's a negotiated item for sure, but we should put it on the table what security guarantees Ukraine absolutely needs and what the United States should be providing as part of that multinational force Ukraine.
What do you think of the fact that they hit a U.S. factory that does electronics, had nothing to do with military in Ukraine? Do you think that was a message or just incidental?
Next, we have incidental. Incidental, that means not planned or extra. Russia said the damage to the U.S. factory was incidental, not on purpose. And be careful, don't confuse this with accidental. If you take a look at the adverb form of this word, like incidentally, let's compare it with accidentally. Accidentally means not on purpose. He accidentally spilled his coffee. Incidentally means by chance. Hey, incidentally, I saw your friend yesterday. The two words can be very confusing, but they are not synonyms.
What do you think of the fact that they hit a U.S. factory that does electronics, had nothing to do with military in Ukraine? Do you think that was a message or just incidental?
No, I'm not certain they knew that was a U.S. appliance factory. Certainly the killing of innocent Ukrainian citizens on a regular basis is really his target. He doesn't target military infrastructure very often. He targets killing civilians to put pressure on Zelensky.
So I wanted to bring you to a Truth Social post the president put on, which shows he's getting a little miffed by Putin, perhaps. He said, quote, "It is very hard, if not impossible, to win a war without attacking an invader's country. It's like a great team in sports that has a fantastic defense, but is not allowed to play offense. There is no chance of winning. It is like that with Ukraine and Russia." So that's his way of saying the slow walking of weapons was from the President Biden's regime really led to this. We can't let them lose, but we can't let them win either.
We have talked about infrastructure on this channel before, so maybe it's review. Infrastructure. Infrastructure is the basic buildings and systems like roads, bridges, and factories. Things a city needs to run well. The attack hurt Ukraine's infrastructure, including power lines and storage. Miffed. I don't think I have ever taught this word before, but it's a perfect word to get on the IELTS or TOEFL exam, something to give you trouble. They are trying to trick you on those tests. Let's not get you tricked today. Miffed means a little angry or upset. I was miffed when my friend never showed up for dinner. Yeah, take a look at that picture right there. That little girl definitely looks miffed. Slow walking. They use it in the newscast, but it has nothing to do with walking. It's an idiom and it means delaying on purpose. Some leaders were slow walking decisions about what to do next. I think a lot of people could say Putin is slow walking this peace with Ukraine. He doesn't want it to happen right now. We might also say he is using delay tactics. He wants peace to take longer so he can destroy more of Ukraine.
So that's his way of saying the slow walking of weapons was from the President Biden's regime really led to this. We can't let him lose, but we can't let him win either.
No, I mean, the president, in making those remarks, certainly is very much aware of how much Ukraine was being held back, and particularly when Ukraine had the momentum early on in the war, had stopped the Russian advance, and then began to take territory back very successfully. And we were not giving them tanks at the time. We were not giving them long-range offensive fires. We were not giving them the F-16s with trained pilots. All of those capabilities eventually came. And then even when we gave them long-range offensive missiles that could reach deep into Russia, into their infrastructure, their military bases, where their logistics was, we wouldn't let them fire. We wouldn't let them target that. It wasn't until November of last year, during the election month, that Biden released that restriction because he knew the outcome. President Trump was coming into power.
Momentum. This is energy that keeps something moving forward. The attack gave momentum to calls for more U.S. help for Ukraine. Capabilities is next. Capabilities, that means what someone or something can do. You have the capability to become a great English speaker. The strike showed Russia still has strong military capabilities. Let's look at that submarine. Some of its capabilities are being able to go under the water. I'm sure it also has the capability of launching a missile. Logistics. This is the way supplies and plans are organized. The bombing made logistics harder for the company and workers. If a city has good infrastructure, the logistics of moving things around that city become easier.
That's how restricted Ukraine has been, and they've always had one arm tied behind their back. The president obviously is recognizing this as going forward, and knowing we could be in a much better place if Biden hadn't held back, one, the weapons themselves initially, and then two, how to use those weapons.
So you sent me this rough outline of what you think should happen for security guarantees, and you say the Ukraine provides security guarantees, and this is what it would look like. Command and control, intelligence, logistics, brigade task force on the ground providing training to Ukrainian forces. So until we can get international forces there, you think we should be there in Ukraine?
Yeah, we have to be. I mean, the president hasn't made any decisions on this. The chairman is working this with the chief of defenses of the countries that want to support. The national security advisor, dual-hatted Marco Rubio, Secretary of State and national security advisor, is working with the countries involved. Eventually, options will come to the president. We can move forces we already have in Europe to provide assistance in Ukraine. I'm telling you straight out, the Europeans do not have the capability to provide command and control of the majority of the forces. Should be Euros on the ground at a defensive belt. But we continue to provide intelligence. We have to provide logistics. They don't have the scale to do that. We should put a brigade task force on the ground in Ukraine, away from the defensive belt, training the Ukrainians in combined arms maneuver, something they cannot do, and the Euros aren't very good at it, just being frank with you here. Air defense, they need more of it. Some of that should be on the ground. Some of that could be in the border states. Air power, we have a sufficient air power to cover the force already in Europe, doesn't have to be in Ukraine.
Right.
But
Could be
yes,
in Romania.
options will come to the president. He'll make the decision.
We have another idiom here, like they are fighting with one arm tied behind their back. That just means fighting with fewer tools or less power. For some reason, it is harder for them. Ukraine is fighting like it has one arm tied behind its back compared to Russia. For example, Ukraine is receiving a lot of weapons from the United States, Canada, Europe, but they are not able to use those weapons in Russia. They are only able to use them for defense purposes. So it's like Ukraine is fighting with one hand tied behind their back. Initially, this means at the beginning. Initially, people thought the strike hit a military target, but no, it hit a factory that has nothing to do with the military. They are not making bombs in that factory. Initially, in the picture, you can see it says first day on a new job. So maybe initially they loved their new job, and then after a few weeks, they didn't like it so much. I initially began working out in the morning, but I found I liked working out in the evening better. Yeah, I wish this was true for me. I don't work out all that much right now. I need to start working out. A chairman. I know it has man in the word, but it doesn't have to be a man. A chairman is the main leader of a company. The chairman of the U.S. company said they were shocked by the attack. This one can be a little difficult because it's also an idiom, dual-hatted. Dual-hatted, that means having two jobs at the same time. The U.S. official was dual-hatted, working as a general and a diplomat. A general is used to fighting wars. A diplomat is used to making peace. So if somebody was doing both jobs, they could definitely be called dual-hatted. Most adults are dual-hatted, working outside of the home and being parents. Take a look at this picture. This person definitely looks like a mom. She probably has kids at home. It looks like she is at work right now, and maybe her kids had a problem at home, so she has to do two things at once. She's trying to do her job at work, but at the same time, she's trying to be a mom. If you hear the term someone is wearing many hats, it just means they have many things to do, different things to do at their job. What if a native English speaker says to you, hey, I'm just being frank right now? What does that mean? It means being honest and direct. Some people don't like it when people are honest with them. They would like things to be sugar-coated. That's the opposite of being frank. The reporter said, just being frank, this attack could cause bigger problems. Congratulations, you made it to the end of another very difficult English lesson. If you're looking for more English lessons, right down there is another lesson about Ukraine, Russia, Donald Trump, all of that mess. I hope if you are living in Ukraine or Russia or Gaza or wherever there is war, I hope you are safe. Thanks so much for watching. See you next time.